dance and doing the thing. Now the music's playing behind us.
You're not supposed to talk over the music.
I know. I'm doing what I want now because, all right, boys and girls, welcome to another edition.
I'm supposed to
Better
introduce
and Broadway.
Tom.
We are
I'm introducing
living
Tom.
room. Justin is still talking.
Me and Rob have the best fucking. We have the best communication and like chemistry of any people ever to do anything.
Fantastic. I'm not Chef Ryan, as you can see. I am Coach Rob. I am taking over Chef's spot. He is having a good time today. He's doing some murder yoga, or as some of you like to call it, jujitsu. But since we're going to start episode 9, Justin, if you are ready, you can introduce our friend today.
I was born ready, man.
Take it away.
I was born. I woke up. Look, I haven't slept. You see how red my eyes are? I've been so excited about having a podcast with my good friend, the heavyweight champion of, I don't know. What are you the heavyweight champion of? Like, you know what? You are the strongest school teacher in the world, probably. At least the strongest school teacher in Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you guys have already met him if you've been watching the podcast and singing along with us. I have not had a podcast with my friend Tom here for about 5 years. I did the math, and Tom already knows this. Rob, you may not know this. Tom is a kiss of death for me. It seems as though every time I do a podcast for Tom, with Tom, or in whatever distinction you're talking about, my podcast stops. For whatever reason, we quit. So this will probably be the last episode of Better Than Broadway. I hope you guys enjoy, gentlemen, the podcast killer, Tom Sroka.
Wow, that was almost as good as the Austin Theory and John Cena promo. That was just like, I was here, and then you just completely just hit me in the nuts as you walked out there.
In the nuts.
What the fuck is up, man? It is so good to see you and talk to you, dude.
What's going on, guys? How you doing? Appreciate being on again.
Love having you on the show, pal.
I know. I was excited. That's why I saw you guys message. And I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do that again.
I was super guest.
Yeah, two-time. He's got what? It's you and then what? Or Dwayne too, right?
Yeah,
that's right. Dwayne's been on twice.
So yep. You know what you got to do though now? You got to get the Triple Crown. You got to do a podcast with just one of us, every single one of us, just you one-on-one, and then you get the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
So
man. Or I need to get me and Wayne need to get on at the same time.
Oh man, have you and Dwayne on at the same time with
Fatal four-way?
Oh, yeah, right.
Fatal four-way. Speaking of Fatal Four-Way, yeah, we were supposed to. We almost had one. Was it last night? Did you guys check SmackDown?
I did not.
I got a chance to do the highlights at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever when I got back from being out. So Rob, Tom, so good to have you on. Seriously, it literally has been 5 years since we've done a podcast.
Well, you posted the last one that we did together, and I like looked at the timestamp, and I was like, oh, or you posted one that we did.
Yeah,
and then I went down the rabbit hole, and I was like, oh man, it's been a minute.
I posted the first one you and I ever did together, which was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
And then, but I've been on yours, I think, a couple times. You've been on, you've been on every iteration of my fitness podcast, which, by the way, maybe we can break the curse of the Sroka, because I'm actually about to start my podcast. So doing this podcast, I'm building the room now at,
there you go.
And I'll announce it now at a Celtech MD, which is a wellness clinic for hormones and stuff like that in Sandy Plains. They are sponsoring me, and I am starting back the Jim Gypsy podcast all over again. So hopefully we can break it.
That's awesome.
Tom, you are not invited to come on.
That's cool. I get it.
So we're gonna have you on this one. So
works for me.
What do you guys want to talk about?
What do you got? Why don't we talk about Revolution first?
There you go.
Cool. Did you guys watch the press conference, or whatever, the scrum that they call it after Revolution?
Oh yeah.
So holy crap. We could do a whole podcast on that. But Ricky Starks, did you see what he started with when they sat down?
Absolutely.
He started with, what do you guys want to talk about?
Right.
Jab at Cody and Roman or whatever. I just thought that was great, especially since he was seen, at the Royal Rumble with Cody or whenever it was. That behind the scenes was a big stink. But
so I have a question about these scrum things. Did AEW start doing those and then WWE copied the format, or has that always been a thing?
So WWE started doing press conferences at Crown Jewel a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Now I don't believe they did press conferences at every pay-per-view, but when AEW started doing them, they said, oh shit, we probably need to start doing these again too. And what I like about the way WWE does theirs is it's a very professional format, and they do the questions, and the wrestlers are half in kayfabe and half themselves, which I think is great. With the AEW media scrums, almost everybody is in character all the way through. Because now MJF is the exception, because MJF's always in character. So you can't separate him from, Maxwell and MJF. He's just always the same. So
see, I was going to say the opposite. I felt as though you're right, 50-50 with WWE, but up until the brawl out, fall out, at All Out, I felt as though AEW were completely not in character. I thought that was the one spot where you would hear Chris Jericho, come and talk, and he was, he would talk about, and the heel wouldn't necessarily say bad things about the other person. I felt that was the case. And then after Punk, I almost feel like maybe, and this is kind of like just a theory that's been in my head, is like, I almost feel like maybe Tony was like, all right, now we probably need to be more in character, just to kind of like soften the blow of what fuck CM Punk did. Could just be a coincidence just in my head or whatever, but I feel like that's been the way that it's been. But, I want to push back on you, Rob, because I feel like for as big of a production as WWE is and everything else, when I look at the media scrums or press conferences or whatever they call them in their iteration, I feel as though it's a little bit like under budget. Like the camera pulls back sometimes and you see the pop, the drop ceiling in the little locker room where they're at. Like you see the side. And then when you're watching AEW, they've got like these freaking LED monitors behind them and stuff. Like it seems like much bigger, at least recently.
I mean, the big thing is for somebody like me who's not like, I don't watch it as religiously as I used to. It brings for me like a whole other level of like story development, which I think is cool. Like the first one I actually watched, and it got me into them, which was, I was like, oh man, have they always done these? Is you mentioned the one at All Out with CM Punk. Like I saw like a YouTube clip of it or something. So then I went and I looked for the full on thing, watched the entire press conference. And now every pay-per-view that I've seen so far, like I hang around to watch the thing at the end of it, because I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be something they're going to add to the story, or another build-up or whatever and stuff. So I think it's a nice little addition for the less involved wrestling fans. I feel like it just gives you another side of the equation, another side of like the business and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of cool because some of the, like I said, WWE, they definitely do like a half and half. The CM Punk one was awesome. Like I've not hidden the fact that I'm a huge CM Punk fan. I laughed my ass off when he was just talking about how he works with a bunch of children, because that's kind of how I've always viewed the Elite in general. So I thought that was good and stuff like that. But obviously it wasn't that good for business given the fallout and everything that has happened since. But yeah, that's why I was just curious if they had always done that, because I don't ever remember that being made as big of a public thing in the past.
I wonder why you're a CM Punk fan. Where is it that you live again?
Chicago, Illinois, baby.
Chicago, Sroka.
I totally agree, Tom. For me, I think, like you said, it adds a level of, but it's more accessibility, right? Because like, let's say you don't have cable, right? Yeah. So you don't really get to watch the day-to-day product. And I didn't really think about that until like I canceled cable last week because I was just done with Xfinity. We've got it set back up now. I got Hulu Live, which by the way, so far is freaking phenomenal. It's amazing. Yeah. On Dwayne's advice. And but so I didn't watch a whole week's worth of wrestling, or rather I had to catch back up on it. But like if you don't have cable, which a lot of people don't nowadays, they just do the Netflix thing, and if you're not paying the $50, $60 or whatever for the pay-per-views, it's hard to keep up with wrestling, being a wrestling fan. So like in your situation, you can watch a media scrum for free on YouTube, and that almost keeps you up with with everything. And they've gotten so good. Like, honestly, I know that I didn't watch Revolution, but I saw the highlights. I know that we had a 5.75 star match and a 5-star match on Revolution, which I'm sure we can talk about. But like honestly, the press conference, I would have paid a pay-per-view for the press conference. It was so entertaining.
Yeah.
Rob, I want you to help me with this because I feel as though I've noticed that the pre-press conference was something that New Japan did more, and I really like that type of shoot stuff. Like when you saw Jericho versus Omega, that was the first time I saw trying to make it seem professional, but it's obviously still this promotion that they're doing that's scripted.
Right. So one of the great things that New Japan does, they hit the nail on the head with this 100%, is before Wrestle Kingdom, they always do this big press conference. Now, they don't do a press conference for every show they do, but they do this one. It's kind of the same way that UFC does things, where they have the weigh-ins and then they get up there and they do this, and sometimes they shove each other to build some controversy, and they just kind of talk about it. It's the same way that boxing does, when Tyson Fury would have had his heavyweight fight with who's the Bronze Bomber? Who's that guy?
Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, Deontay Wilder.
Wilder,
They had, thank you, I couldn't think of his name. Bronze medalist in the Olympics. Couldn't think of the guy's name. I feel horrible. But anyway, they had their press conference, and they kind of go back and forth. Well, I love stuff like that because it kind of gives you a look into the fighters themselves. And I love the fact that we get this with the wrestlers. Now, I don't think it's something that they should do for every major event. I think that WrestleMania, obviously, this would be a great opportunity. But the post interviews are great because you're like I said, like we said earlier, you're getting both sides. You're getting to see a little bit of that curtain pulled away, especially in the wrestling industry where kayfabe was so important and it was so protected for so long. Now AEW has an all access show that's starting at the end of March where they're pulling the curtain all the way back. And you're seeing people like Britt Baker and Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly talking about, his return to the ring. You're looking at the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they are going to do some segment about this whole brawl out and all out. They're going to talk about that on like episode 5 or 6 of this series. So at least we'll have some insight into how they feel about that. I don't know, but I like the idea of, because we live in a digital age and nobody's dumb anymore. Everybody's smart. Everybody's been smartened up to, how things go in the industry. Just pulling that veil back so you can see what's really going on, I think is kind of special, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, evolution is important, and even in wrestling, I think that you kind of got to roll with the punches, not to be too metaphorical or whatever, but I like the idea of making something feel a little bit more real. And to me, a press conference, both before and or after, just feels like a natural, real thing. It's not something that's done before. It's something that UFC, like you said, did, and it gives a little bit more realism to it. And like, look, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like there's some things that work, like a hot tag fucking works.
Right.
So do it. Right. Like cheap heat works. Do it. So like these press conferences and this media scrums afterwards, they work. I think we should do it. I agree, not with every single one. Do you notice that when they went over to Saudi and they did, was it the Crown Jewel or wherever it was that they did over there they did a pre-press conference with Logan Paul and Roman Reigns.
Yes.
And Heyman and all that, they got up there, and I love that. I thought that was great. Again, not before everyone, but maybe before the big four, doing that pre-press conference and making it feel big. I don't think they have to go over to Saudi Arabia and make them do that. I don't know if that was something the Crown Prince had, like, hey, I want to do this because UFC does it, or if it was just a creative thing. But I was here for it. I thought it was great.
Too. But like you said, the big four, I mean, I don't need a press conference before Hell in a Cell. I don't need a press conference for Money in the Bank. I don't need a press conference for Backlash. I don't need a press conference for Extreme Rules. But for for Royal Rumble, for Mania, for Survivor Series, and SummerSlam, totally fine, because those are the tent poles. Those are the ones that are spectacle, and those are the ones they have the best storylines for, and they're the ones that most people watch, because back in the day you only had 4.
I've got, you know what? I would almost say Survivor Series I could do without. I would rather see one for Money in the Bank. And the way I would like to see it is the way that the IFBB does it. So the IFBB for the Olympia has all the competitors come up, and there's like, they have all the open guys up there. They're in their track suits. They're this and that. They all have a mic. They're sitting up there. It's like UFC does the same thing. They get all these, it's like, Conor McGregor went viral that way, talking. He's like, you shut the fuck up. You're like, you'll do nothing, like when he's out there talking smack to everybody. Like somebody will be talking and somebody behind him will just interrupt, and they're yelling at each other back and forth. Yeah. And the IFBB does that to create, a little bit of like storyline for, because honestly, watching bodybuilding is freaking boring, right? But like, trying to give you a little bit of storyline behind, the persons and emotions and stuff like that. I like the idea that for Money in the Bank, everybody that's going to be the Money in the Bank match, get them all in there. It writes itself. You know what I mean? But
Tom, your thoughts?
No, I was literally just thinking about it, because they used to do something similar to that. And I think the last time I remember them doing it was when Jericho was with WWE. And you remember they had everybody come out and sit on ladders for the Money in the Bank match. Yeah, it was that, whether I couldn't remember whether it was Raw or SmackDown. And that's essentially what they did. Like they had all they did it for the women, they did it for the men. Like they had the Money in the Bank ladder match, whoever was all in it came out, and they all were sitting. I thought it was weird because they're all sitting on ladders talking.
Yeah, that's a little bit over the top. Yeah, but I mean,
that's
WWE.
Yeah, but I always was like, man, somebody's gonna fall off one of these things, and then they would start fighting on the ladders. I'm like, this isn't safe at all.
But what a great visual, what a great visual.
100%.
You're right.
Man, you watch that, like the optics of that on TV, you're like, oh shit. That's
and wrestling's all about visuals, right? Like that's when they bring the props in, they're not thinking about what is actually going to hurt the most. They're thinking about what's going to look the most brutal.
Right.
That's why you get, thumbtacks. It looks brutal. That's why you get that's why you put, that's why you grab, what is it? The fluorescent lights, and you hit it or whatever. That doesn't hurt when you get hit with a fluorescent light. You'll probably get cancer and die, but it looks brutal. It's the visual is wrestling's all about the visual. So I agree with that. But as far as for the realism side of it, I think some tables, 2 or 3 tiers with everybody, trying to make it look, more presentable or professional or whatever, and then let them just fucking jump off the table and do a froggy bow onto somebody.
I think Money in the Bank would definitely be the better one to do that. I agree. I think Survivor Series would be good if they had all the Survivor teams and stuff. But again, we were talking about this on the last one. I feel like unless they're going to start bringing NXT back into Survivor Series, I feel like now it's just kind of with like there's like a handful of free agent guys that can kind of go and do whatever they want, and then like there's really no necessarily like allegiance to Raw or SmackDown. Like there's no draft anymore, so randomly guys are like, I'm on Raw now or I'm on SmackDown now. So I feel like Survivor Series has kind of lost its luster or whatever. But I could see that.
I disagree with that, Tom, because it didn't used to be like that, and they used to build a story.
Yeah,
and I don't like this just like, well, I'm red and you're blue. I mean, it's like literally like politics, right? It's like, just because I'm a Democrat, I got to fight you because you're a Republican.
Right.
Because, I'm loyal, even though I was over on the blue brand 4 months ago, now I'm on the red brand and now I'm loyal and we're going to fight over it. Like, it's stupid. Like it's to me, like build a storyline where 5 people have to do it. And that's what they did last time. And I thought this is the best Survivor Series we've seen, in my opinion, since I started watching again. Rob, what do you think?
That's why War Games was so damn good, is because
that's what I mean.
I mean, you had your big storyline, you had your bloodline storyline, and then you had everybody else. You had KO and the Brawling Brutes, and I mean everybody. It all, the pieces all fit. Yeah. Then you had Bianca Belair versus Damage Control and Rhea Ripley. The pieces were fitting, and the great thing about this past Survivor Series was that that's when the build for WrestleMania this year really started.
Yeah.
Was here. Now, everybody thought that for sure Bianca Belair was gonna work with Rhea at WrestleMania based on Survivor Series, but now you've got Charlotte and Rhea, which is a rematch from the NXT title 3 years ago, which is great. I like long-term storytelling. I like the full circle of it, but it's interesting to me to see how well the rug is being woven, so to speak, by Triple H and Road Dogg, Shawn, his crew. Back to Tom.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that I know we talked about that last time too, and that's one of the things that's kind of drawn me back in is like I feel like for a while there, the creative side for WWE, they weren't interested in payoff, or like long-term payoff of a story or whatever. And I feel like that was the one thing I really enjoyed about NXT. And I always reference that Survivor Series that they were involved in where they did the tank thing on SmackDown or whatever, because that was one of my favorite Survivor Series. Because the matches were just like nonstop. Like I every match on that card, that Survivor Series, I was into. And so it was kind of cool to watch all that and stuff. And that was why I liked that old black and gold of NXT is I felt like Hunter and Shawn did a good job of like long-term payoffs on stories and stuff like that. And I felt like the main roster, it got really sloppy, really quick. And then AEW came into there. And obviously at the beginning, like they didn't have a ton of star power, but you had guys like Jericho who like did the long-term payoffs for storylines and stuff like that. And then once Hunter got involved, it got back to it. So I like some of these storylines that are coming up right now. I like the Rhea and Charlotte one. I'm intrigued in that one. I thought the Austin Theory one was interesting with Cena. I like at first I
still got to watch that promo. Everybody's been talking about it. I haven't gotten to that.
It's honestly it's not bad.
Was that on Raw or SmackDown? Did I miss that? That was Raw, right?
It was on Raw. Right. My only issue with it was that I felt like it just completely buried Austin for no reason. Like
that's what I heard.
I felt like he just got embarrassed like up and down. And unless they're trying to lead up to him like having a change of character per se, I don't know what their plan is with him. But like I just don't that it just looks like it's gonna end up being a squash match. Like it just he absolutely destroyed him the entire time. Like I thought it was gonna be like a build up and then a tear down, and there was never any build up.
Well, Theory has to win though, right? I mean, he's got to win at this point, especially if they're making him look this bad. I feel like they're doing it just so he can win dastardly and have that much more heat. Because with Cena, like I think like Cena's one of those guys where like we didn't realize how good we got it or how we had it, and until it was gone. Yeah. And like how good he is, we realize now, and now he's that perpetual good guy baby face that he wanted to be, but we wouldn't let him be because they're like, whatever. And now that he's back, he's like naturally that. So like to beat him, I think would put, nuclear heat on Theory. So in my mind, Theory has to win. Unless if he doesn't, like you said, Tom, I think he's down back to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, it's just a weird spot for the US title. That's like I was hoping.
It's like, what's he gonna do? He's gonna win it, and then what? Cena's gonna be gone for 6 months again? Like, he's not. I mean, he's got so much stuff that he's got going on, and I mean, between spokesperson for like Honda or what? I mean, all the voiceover stuff and the movies and everything else. Like, what's he gonna come back on and start doing the open challenge again? Like,
because go ahead.
Well, that's the argument against The Rock. That's the argument against The Rock being at WrestleMania, because if he goes and works Roman on night 2 and he beats him, well, then what? I mean, these are not full-time people. I mean, Brock Lesnar, this is what Brock Lesnar does. He's a wrestler. Now, is he a feature? Yeah. So he pops up every once in a while. He wasn't on Raw or SmackDown this week because they didn't have anything for him to do.
But neither was Roman Reigns, right?
He gonna show up. He gonna show up the week before WrestleMania on the go home, have a stare down with Omos, and somehow, some way, Omos is going to get the upper hand on him just for Brock to bury his ass at Mania. But to not bringing The Rock in, John Cena probably won't be on Raw next week. Probably won't be on SmackDown next week. Yeah. And Austin Theory is going to get his chance to have a rebuttal. It's not going to go well. They're going to boo his ass out of the building because he got crushed. And then he's going to win the match at Mania through some crookery. And that's going to be another passing of the torch from Cena to another young star, the way he did with Roman.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense because this kid is the future of the business, whether we like it or not. I mean, he's 24. He's a kid. We're all 40. He's a damn kid, even though he's all bigger than us except for Justin and Tom. That means he's bigger than me. So
is he? How big is Austin Theory?
I think he's like built. I think he's like 6'2", 220. I mean, he's in good shape.
Is he that tall? Well, I mean, he's taller than me then.
He's a bodybuilder. So, but I mean, like I just feel like it's completely disingenuous to let Cena just roll over this kid and let him win the match when you want to build someone who's going to be around. And think about the same way John Cena started. Mm-hmm. He wasn't really well liked. He came out and did the match against Angle, and he got over. And then he just started, just treading water. He changed his character. People started liking him. He won the U.S. title. He won the world title, and he became John Cena. Now, I feel like Austin Theory is going to have a similar evolution, but it's going to take a little more time because until you can show that this guy can be a legitimate heel, he's never going to be a legitimate babyface.
Yeah. Selfishly, though, I was hoping from watching Elimination Chamber, I wanted to see Gargano and Theory for the US. Like I honestly thought that it was set. I thought it was setting up that like from Chamber, we were going to get a setup for Mania for the US title out of one of those guys. And so like the Cena coming out of left field, I was like, all right, like I get it.
Gargano's not hitting for me on the main roster. He's just not. I'm not, I liked him when he was doing NXT. I think he's one of those great talents that don't really translate that well on the main roster to me. He just seems so vanilla. And like, Rob, what you were talking about with Theory, like Cena was Theory when he started. I mean, absolutely. His gimmick was mid. I mean, like it was vanilla at best, right? Yeah. He didn't really have any character development at all. He was just like this. He was a, what's it called? The select a character or whatever, you know, he was
creator wrestler.
He was creator wrestler. And I honestly think Theory probably has more character than Cena did at this point in his career. So, I mean, I think just the little tweak that they've done with him in the last couple months, I think he's doing much better. I could see him being the face of the company now. I couldn't see him being the face of the company 6 months ago.
Going back to your thing on Gargano, that's why I was hoping he would get into a title thing for like the US or whatever, because I don't feel like on the main roster yet he's really had any significant storyline. And I feel the same way. I liked him way better in NXT. I have not been impressed so far with what he's done on the main roster, and I was just kind of hoping it just had to do more with the fact that he hasn't gotten any sort of a significant push just yet. So I wanted to see what he would do with somebody like a Theory, who is, like you guys said, like I like Theory. Like he's growing on me just because of how he has evolved over the last, especially since having the US title. Like I thought how he got the US title was brilliant. How he has carried himself since, like the Elimination Chamber match. Like I really liked what he did in there. And then I was just hoping that like for Mania, they would I was either hoping it was going to be Ford or Priest or Gargano, that they were going to build up to a Mania match for the US title, because I wanted to see, because like those guys are obviously talented, but they haven't had a chance to really do anything yet. So I wanted to see what they could do with a title buildup, and then just go from there. Like if they nail it, great, move on. If they don't, like discard them and move on to the next project.
And I think that is the best point that we probably make this entire podcast. with WrestleMania coming, it's so hard to start anything with anybody because they've been planning this show since November,
Right.
and if not last year.
Mhm.
And I think that once WrestleMania is over and we start having all these Raws and things like that, I think you're going to see people like Johnny Gargano, like Karrion Kross, like people that we appreciated in NXT that are starting to get overlooked on the main roster. I think those people are going to have their chance to shine after Mania because guys like LA Knight, super charismatic, good worker, everything. For some reason, he's not connecting with the crowd. In the beginning, Dominic Mysterio was not connecting with the crowd, and they pushed him to the moon with his father, with the tag team belts and everything. You put him in Judgment Day, you get these funny vignettes at holidays where he goes to jail and doesn't do all this stuff. And now he looks like Eddie Guerrero with the mullet, and you're like, there's something about this guy
Yeah.
we really want to see flesh out.
Dominic is fantastic.
I think he's great.
Him being in the he was so boring and lame when he was with his father, and him being with Rhea and him being in the Judgment Day has just completely 180'd him, and he's turned from this like I want to change the channel whenever he comes on to like, all right, what's going to happen this week? Yeah. I'm here for this. And unfortunately, not everyone can have the same experience within these factions, because I think the opposite has happened to Damian Priest. Damian Priest has all the tools. He has the size, he has the look, he has the charisma, he can talk, the fucker can go. But he has just become basically Jake Hager, of the Judgment Day. And like he's yeah, exactly. He's just like, I like these braids, basically. Like, I think you need to break him away. And I mean, I think he probably still needs to stay heel, but like put a rocket ship on that guy. Cause to me, he's got all the tools, but like I just don't give two shits about him in Judgment Day.
Speaking of people I don't think anybody gives two shits about, I want to jump into NXT real quick. And listen, and hear me out on this. I think this woman is going to be a huge star, and that's Tiffany Stratton. She's she's kind of like so Tiffany Stratton. She was a gymnast. She did like the trampoline gymnastics and things like that. And they put her on the roster. She's just blonde. She's blonde and she's got muscles, and she just has that look about her. She's just got that Charlotte Flair kind of look to her, and she reminds me a lot of Cher Horowitz from Clueless meets China.
Yes,
and I think
that's an amalgamation.
And she could talk on the mic, and she's but I think that if you see Tiffany Stratton, I think you'll just be like, okay, light bulb. So I think in the next 3 to 4 years, she's going to be on the same level as a Charlotte, a Becky, a Bianca. She's got the look, she's got talent. She just needs to clean up her in-ring. She's still a little green, but I mean, she's only been doing this for a year, and she just came back from an injury. So I want to say, breakout star of 2024 is probably going to be Tiffany Stratton. She's in the words of Booker T, she's good. She's not Roxanne Perez good, but she's good.
Roxanne. Yeah, man. I honestly, self-admittedly, I don't really follow NXT that much anymore because I'm like Tom, man. I was all about the black and gold. And then, it slowly went away. And I don't know if we'll ever see that again, because I don't think it was just, Hunter and Sean that had the hand in it. If you think about the talent and the people and the stars that were in it in that era, they were picking all this top-notch talent that were just itching to get in front of a large audience, and they had the freedom, and it was a perfect storm. And I hate to sound like, Mr. Nostalgia, old man in the, get off my lawn, but like those were the solid, original, good old, quote unquote, or no pun intended, golden days of NXT, and I just don't think that there's talent out there to pull from anymore to do it. And even if there is, AEW is getting them, and you know, WWE is trying to do this, you know, let's find, you know, ex gymnasts, let's find, you know, whatever, and build them. So it's very much so turned back into a developmental system.
I will say this. So like I watch NXT from time to time. You are 100% right in terms of the talent. There is a huge, because Rob and I talked about this the last time too. There is a huge like lack of depth with the talent. I will give WWE credit though. They do a really good job now, and I'm sure that this is Hunter's doing, or he's got at least a hand in it, of they pull what they'll do is they'll pull a main roster guy down to fill coffers and stuff like they did with the New Day, like that
like
tag,
a Ziggler, or
that tag division was abysmal, and they brought the New Day in, and I watched that the NXT pay-per-view before Elimination Chamber, and that 4-way tag match that they were in, they elevated everybody that was in that match, and it was a phenomenal. Like I didn't know who two of the teams were. But like I Googled them afterwards. Like Gallus was the only tag team that I knew. Braun Breaker, we talked about. I love him. He's a great talent. When I saw Ziggler come back, I was hoping, or when Ziggler came down for a little bit, I was hoping. Like I feel like Breaker needs a really big name for coming up to this Mania's NXT or whatever they call their thing. Their big like no way out kind of a deal. They just don't have anybody. I think what I'm hearing right now is Carmelo Hayes, they're going to do a unification thing with the North American champ. Rob, I like that match too that he was in. I watched it, and like it was same thing with Apollo Creed. They brought him down, and he and Carmelo had a great match for the North American title. I hadn't seen too much of Carmelo. I said I wasn't a fan. I am now. I liked his skill set. Loved his skill set. So I think right now that's the buildup. But that's the problem though, is like they're so short on depth of talent that they're now having these like title for title bouts in NXT. And I feel like that's my only issue with NXT is they do that more than anybody else now. Because this will be the third time, I think, in the last like 4 years they've had the North American title since they brought the North American title in.
No. Wesley has the North American title now.
Oh, okay. What
you're gonna have so you're gonna have at NXT Stand and Deliver, you're gonna have Carmelo Hayes battling Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship. Now, this is probably most likely gonna be the match that Braun Breaker finally loses, because now it's Carmelo Hayes' time. I mean, this guy's phenomenal, and he deserves to be a champion. He's held the North American title, and he's held it multiple times, and he's elevated that title. And now I think it's time for him to get his due and let Braun move on to the main roster. I think Braun's going to be the guy to take out Gunther. That's just my opinion.
You're 100% right. I was 100% thinking of Wesley.
No, you're fine. We're just talking.
Yeah, no, but no, I agree. Like I would like this next Stand and Deliver is going to be the last one for Braun. He's going to come up to the main roster. I would like to see him. My thought was either Gunther or Theory.
I was about to say Theory. I feel like Gunther's got too much heat to lose. Like I feel like Gunther. I'm still pissed off that Gunther isn't fighting Brock. Like that sounds to me, that just hints that McMahon's back in creative, that he's fighting almost, because it was just so perfect to put Gunther and Brock in a match after that. It felt so natural.
I'm not gonna lie though, I hated that they pulled the trigger on Lashley and Brock too early.
Yeah, I did too. That should have been a WrestleMania match. Now, let me ask you guys this question. WrestleMania is all about what?
Moments.
WrestleMania moments. Now, you tell me, what's a bigger moment to you? Brock Lesnar versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, or Sheamus versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, which if Sheamus wins, he becomes the ultimate Grand Slam champion, where he's won all the belts. He's that belt away from winning them all. What match is a bigger moment for you?
I wouldn't be mad about either.
Yeah, I could go either way.
Pick one.
I could go either way.
So my
question: which one has more pomp in circumstance and meaning, and which one's just a
there's definitely more for the commentators to talk about with Sheamus.
Yes,
for sure.
But I think crowd pop. I think because has Brock ever held the IC title?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like if that's
he hasn't, he's been on a fucking losing streak too.
He's never had a secondary title. He's never had the U.S. title. He's never had the Intercontinental title. He's only had the World Championship. I don't even think he's had a tag belt. I think he's only held the big title. I think he's only held the top title.
So I mean, like, I feel like crowd pomp and circumstance. I feel like Brock would be the bigger hit. Okay. I feel like wrestling fan pomp and circumstance, Sheamus would be the bigger hit, because like regardless of it being scripted or whatever, to be able to say that you held every title in your organization, like that's pretty big. And the fact that like Sheamus has always been one of those guys, like I put him in the same category for me as like Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler. Like I've always respected because of their longevity and just their body of work. Their body of work can stay here through the generations, and it translates. Like you put them in a match with anybody and they're gonna go. There are other guys who've had to go like this with their body of work to adapt to the times. Those like three guys, in my opinion, have never had to. So like I would love to see if that is true. I didn't know that about that's the only title Sheamus needs to grab. I would love to see Sheamus with that title. I think Seth Rollins has had all of them, correct? He's had the Intercontinental. So like to put him in a category with somebody like Rollins and stuff like that, I feel like
everybody.
I would say the Miz is like a 2-time Grand Slam, right? Yeah.
Kofi, the Miz, Rollins, John Cena.
Cena hasn't had the IC.
You're right. Cena hasn't had the IC.
I feel like with Brock being Cowboy Brock, maybe? the old school like USA in me feels like Brock versus Gunther, with Brock being the good old cowboy country boy now. I feel like that's almost like if they gave it a chance to build up, like him and his Brock shenanigans against the uptight foreigner. Like yes. I feel like there's just so much. Yeah, like it's time is what stories, what is it? Tale as old as time. Yeah, like I mean it's Cena versus fucking Rusev, right?
Yes. That was my thought was when you got, I think in one of the group chats we were talking about Gunther and Brock, like it was a rumored match for Mania or whatever, and I immediately went back to Cena and Rusev. I'm like, it's definitely got those same kind of vibes. It can definitely have that same buildup, because I love this new knucklehead version of Brock and his antics. I love it. I feel like
it's my favorite it's the only version of Brock I've actually enjoyed, honestly. I'm just being blunt. I didn't really enjoy any of his. I didn't enjoy when he first came in. The cockiness. I didn't even enjoy him when he was with Heyman. So the Cowboy Brock's definitely my favorite.
Cowboy Brock's a lot of fun.
I love this version of him, and I think with Imperium and how they operate and stuff like that, it's just it's a beautiful counter to that in terms of a buildup and stuff like that. And I would love to see it. I'm not going to lie to you. I have not seen too much on Amos, however the hell you say his name. Omos. He reminds me of Kali, but again, I haven't seen him move. I know he had a run with AJ for a while there with the tag belts, but outside of that, like I haven't seen too much of his work. The only other stuff I saw him in was when they did that abysmal Raw Underground thing with him, and then
with Shane.
Yeah, it was Shane, but it was Amos, and then that other big guy that was Creed's bodyguard, essentially.
Yeah, Dava Kato.
Was he not part of the Hurt Business?
No.
Oh,
no.
He wasn't? Okay.
No.
So just MVP's with him now, but I thought he was part of the Hurt Business at one point.
So when you had that Raw Underground, they had Omos versus Dava Kato, whose real name is Babatunde, and he was commander. He was Commander Aziz with Apollo Crews when Apollo Crews was doing his Nigerian Prince gimmick, and then once he dropped the accent, went back to NXT. Aziz came in after the 2 out of 3 falls match with Carmella Hayes and turned heel on Cruz. So now those two are going to have a match at NXT's Stand and Deliver the night before WrestleMania. that ought to be fun. But at the same time, it's just like, I am completely uninterested in that whatsoever. I think Apollo Crews and Braun Breaker for the NXT Championship is something that I was interested in. This, not so much. I don't like it when these guys have to take a step back to elevate someone who we don't care about. And I know that sounds mean to say that we don't care about this person, but in wrestling, you've got
not our
to have
fault.
charisma, you've got to be able to talk, you've got to be able to work, you've got to be able to sell, and you've got to make me believe in you. And if I don't believe in you, I'm not going to watch your match.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, and I actually was thinking about having a conversation about this with you guys. It's like, because I feel like there are on some of these groups and like the AEW groups and the WWE groups, it almost feels like bots. Like they're just on there just to complain and talk shit about everything that happens. Like something amazing could happen and someone's, like the freaking War Games, Royal Rumble, and somebody's like, that's the worst match I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, what? Like,
awesome
it's
match.
it's just some people just need to learn how to just fucking enjoy wrestling.
Honestly, at this stage in the game, this is honestly the most fun I've had watching wrestling in a long time. Like until you guys put me in that group, I didn't pay attention to New Japan. I watch New Japan now every once in a while. I'll watch Ring of Honor. I'll watch AEW when I see it on TV. Like I watch all that. Like as a fan, I don't understand how people can complain. Like there is just something out there for everybody's taste right now, and it's just like, shut up. Like
with the exception of the Attitude Era, right now is the best time to be a wrestling fan, in my opinion. And if I'm being honest, the Attitude Era had a lot of shit in it. It had a lot of really bad stuff in it.
Yeah.
For all the cruiserweight matches that were great at WCW, if you go back and watch some of those Nitros, a lot of them were dog shit, man.
Oh, terrible.
And then before Rock and Austin started hitting on all cylinders, WWE was dog shit.
Yeah.
Like for all the great stuff, there was a lot of really bad stuff too. So like, just if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I know we literally have a wrestling podcast, so it's kind of our job almost to have an opinion of it. But like, I feel like we do a pretty good job of saying like, hey, like that wasn't that good. I didn't like it. It's okay. Instead of just shitting on absolutely everything. That's what bothers me, because right now is a very, very good time to be a wrestler. And I hate these people's like, oh, well, you're just an AEW fanboy. You're just a New Japan fanboy. Like, no, like, I'm just a fan of wrestling, man. Like, what the fuck? If AEW sucks, I'm going to say it sucks. And it sucked a good amount for the last like 4, maybe 6 months. Before that, it was fucking awesome. And there are parts of it, like anything to do with MJF right now in there is absolutely amazing. Anything to do with Moxley is absolutely amazing. The in-ring talent, like the in-ring actual wrestling in AEW is the best, in my opinion, in the world right now. But some of it's shit. WWE, we shit on WWE for a long time, and it's
you did.
All of us did. Literally, for like 3 or 4 years, the group we would literally watch it. And we were like, the things that we're talking, we were those people who were like, this is horrible. Why am I even watching it? It's like almost like a train wreck. Like we were complaining. We were like old people watching the news. Like, I can't believe this. Like,
yeah, right.
But it's phenomenal. Yeah, but Tom, what were you gonna say?
No, I got a question for you guys. This brought up a thought for my. Take all these wrestling brands you have. Give me some dream booking matches, like cross brand. I know they've done like the Forbidden Door and all that stuff.
Out of my brain, Tom.
Like I have 2 matches in my head in particular that I would love to see. I want to hear I'm talking about from like the promos, the build up, the match itself. I have 2 in my head. So I'm curious, before I give my 2, like what matches you'd like to see cross pollination of sorts.
Okay. Justin, want to go?
I want to go. I want you to go first, Rob.
You want me to go first?
I feel like you've already got something in your head, and I don't want to. A lot of times, you and me end up doing the same damn thing.
I can go first if you got one. I got 2.
Yeah, go.
I mean, I got one right now, and then I can come back and give you another one later.
That's fine.
But a match that I would absolutely love to see would be for the New Japan Championship. I'd like to see Okada versus Montez Ford.
Okay. That's solid.
Because Okada has a little bit of high flying ability, but not as much. He's more technical.
Yeah.
And he's more of that Bret Hart throwback. He's got a killer drop kick. He's got good moves in the ring, and his ring psychology is great. And his promos are kind of slow, but most of the promos in Japan for non-gaijin wrestlers are kind of slow.
Yeah.
But taking Montez Ford with his big thing. I mean, even you could even insert Hiroshi Tanahashi into that match with Tez. Just anything for the IWGP title, whether it be Tanahashi or Okada versus Montez Ford. I would love to see that match. I think that would be main event anywhere. Tom.
The first one I have, I want to see MJF and Seth Rollins.
Okay.
I feel like match, obviously the two of them can run a match. I love like what they're doing. I honestly would love to just see the promos with their current personalities that they have going on. Like I feel like Seth is starting to morph kind of into like a Joker type role.
Oh, yeah.
Just with his aloofness, his goofiness that he has from time to time, but like obviously he has like his antics and stuff like that. And like MJF, like I didn't know anything about him until AEW started, and like that dude is growing on me tenfold. His roast of Seattle when they were about the Super Bowl, that was phenomenal. Like I just think between the two of them, but the fact that Seth has been able to just morph his character so seamlessly and effortlessly over the last like 2-3 years, and just how natural of a heel MJF is on the mic, I would love to see the promos. I would love to see the build. And I think the match would be absolutely a banger of a match between the two of them.
Love it. Everything about that just amazing.
Yeah. Almost for Satnam Singh. I'm just kidding.
I didn't even hear you say.
Almost for
Satnam Singh.
Yeah.
The tallest man in wrestling right now.
6-star match. No. And then the ring breaks. No. Man, I've got so many of them. Honestly, right now, what I would love to see after Cody wins the belt, MJF show up on the Monday night after Raw.
Oh my God.
And start a promo with them.
Oh my God.
I mean, after everything that they've been through, running that on WWE, how could that not be the greatest thing in the last 20 years?
It really would be.
That would stop everything. I mean, that would stop. That would break the internet for sure. I mean,
Jim Cornette might have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that little guy's gonna wrestle him? That's insane. I don't like it already.
That's actually a really good Jim Cornette.
That is good.
Some of the other ones that I was thinking of is literally Kenny Omega versus anybody in WWE.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega versus Seth, Kenny Omega versus Roman. I would just love to see him run rampant in there. But I feel like him and Seth would go back and forth and match way better. But I would love to see Kenny, in his the belt collector form against Roman. I just think it would be fantastic with shit. I just had a brain fart. Don Callis in tow.
Yeah.
And then realistically, I mean, it's not going to happen obviously now, but I would have just loved to see, the Briscoes with some of the talent in WWE.
Yes.
I would have loved to see them with literally anybody in the tag team division. The New Day would have been, with Big E, would have just
Usos.
The Usos and the Briscoes. That's my match.
That's
if I'm dream booking, I pick Usos and that's what I was looking for, and I couldn't think of it. I knew there was somebody. Yeah, literally Usos and the Briscoes. I'll watch that every day, twice on Sunday for the next year.
Well, now that you've grabbed my second dream match, I'm gonna come up with a third.
Yeah.
Who is the toughest guy in the history of wrestling? The toughest.
Toughest?
Yes.
Everybody says Ming, isn't it?
It was yes, Ming. King Haku. Ming from the Samoan dynasty, Polynesian dynasty, Ming, or Haku, whatever you want to call him. I would like to have seen Haku battle Brock Lesnar. Because I feel like that would just and do it in one of those pit fight matches that they had in NXT with all the cage around it and no ropes. Let him do that.
I thought you're gonna say Harley Race.
I mean, Harley Race would be fun. Like Haku versus Harley Race would have been an amazing match. Harley Race versus anybody would have been good.
So you got
Dusty Rhodes versus anybody would have been incredible to watch, because that they said that Dusty could have an entertaining match with a broom. Just that good.
What about Dusty versus Samoa Joe, man?
I could do that.
That just the promos on that of just the back and forth would be phenomenal. Just if we're dream booking, obviously.
And I think the Miz versus MJF, just for the mic work alone.
Yes.
Honestly, at this point, it really depends, because I think if you put MJF in WWE, the Miz is gonna have the advantage. Just because of the PG era. But if you put the Miz in AEW, the Miz doesn't have a chance, man.
Yeah.
He just really doesn't have a chance.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Give the Miz the opportunity in AEW to talk the way MJF is allowed to talk, because in WWE they're going to neuter MJF.
Yes.
I mean, that's my only argument against him not going to WWE. Forget about the money, forget about all the other stuff. It's the fact that his character would be so watered down that I don't think he'd be able to get over.
No.
Speaking of getting over and speaking of MJF, let's talk about the promo from Revolution and the match at Revolution, and then the promo that Daniel gave afterwards.
Absolutely. So at Revolution, for those of you that did not watch the pay-per-view, AEW Revolution was this past Sunday, 6 days ago. MJF versus Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match. They were brewing this thing for 6 weeks. MJF was up to his normal tricks, throwing all these opponents in front of Danielson to try to get him injured, and he was successful because Danielson legit has a shoulder injury. So they get to the match. Danielson goes up a pin pretty quickly, and then MJF, the genius that he is, he low blows Danielson, gets disqualified, so that's a point for Danielson, and then he pins him twice in a row while he's down and tied up. It's just great booking. Great booking.
And that's never happened before. Not to my knowledge. It's like, how do you come up with stuff? That's what impresses me about MJF the most, is how does he come up with stuff that hasn't happened before? Because, like, man, wrestling's been going on for a while, and there's only so much stuff that you can do. And he manages to come up with little things in the ring that, like, oh, I haven't seen that.
Right.
Like, that to me is impressive.
Yeah. So we get through the match. There's a few more falls. There's a submission by Danielson. There's a psycho knee by Danielson. And then MJF ties it up with a pinfall. They go into sudden death. He gets his diamond ring out. He goes to hit Bryan. Bryan hits the knee. MJF takes a powder, and you think for just a second that Danielson's going to win this match, because he starts doing the yes chants and everything, and he's pumping the crowd up. So it's just like, oh my God, he's going to get his moment. And then MJF rolls out of the ring. He grabs the oxygen tank, pops him across the head with it, and then he's out cold. He puts him in the label lock, and Bryan Danielson taps out. MJF wins in odd fashion. But you're right. It was the promo after the match between these two men when they're all
Made it
bloody
make sense.
that made it make sense. And Justin, I'm going to let you take that because I talked the match, and then Tom's going to give us the rebuttal.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's talk. I heard the MJF post, press conference first, so I'm going to talk about that first. Him yelling before you see him on camera and you hearing what he says and the F-bombs and I know maybe that's easy and everybody gives him shit for cheap heat or whatever, but cheap heat works for a reason. We talked about this already on the podcast. Don't fix stuff that's not broken. His believability and him sounding like, I don't know if he's truly just coming up with this shit on the top of his head or if he has it all scripted out and he's just that good of a fucking actor. If that's the case, he needs to get an Academy Award. I've never seen, and I don't use that term lightly. Like, no, I have never seen somebody more believable than MJF when they're doing these promos.
100%.
I truly believe that he is the spawn of Satan and an evil piece of shit. In my heart, I believe that he is. Him walking up on crutches and the intensity that he has with the dried blood on his face, making fun of Punk by eating pickles and talking shit every single time he breathes to everybody. He doesn't let anybody get away. And just the way that he handled Tony Khan talking about throwing the tequila on the kid, I thought the kid looked thirsty. Like, I don't know, man. I can't get enough of it. He's so hard to hate because he's so good, but he somehow goes so far that you still hate him. He has to do this at this point. He has to find new lows to get people to truly hate him because he really does want to be hateable. But when you're that fucking good at something that people know is scripted, it's really, really hard to get them to dislike you. And people were giving him hell for like, you should have done that to the kid or whatever. Maybe it was a shoot. Maybe it wasn't. I don't care. The kid's fine. He's going to get free tickets to AEW for the rest of his life. It's going to be something he's probably going to become a wrestler and he's going to talk about this promo in 20 years. Right. Maybe. So it's just phenomenal. And the fucking pickles, I want to go buy some now because he sold them being so good that I just want to eat some of those damn pickles. And all he did was tell the truth. That's all he did was tell the truth. But Tom, did you see the Bryan Danielson promo on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So can you talk about that? Because that's full circle. To me, that hit me on a completely different emotional level. Like I got choked up.
So I wasn't expecting that. That is the problem. Like I watched the whole thing. I watched it twice because I was just like, it was one of those deals where I didn't see a ton of the buildup. I saw the match, saw the scrum at the end, saw his promo. I went back on YouTube and pulled up a bunch of like buildups because I was like, did they allude to this? Did they talk about any of this stuff? And it was probably, like, honestly, it was one of the best storylines I think AEW has done in a long time. Because I remember when he came back to WWE and the whole, like, I'm doing this for my kids to show them that they can't, that they shouldn't quit and all that stuff. And then he came to AEW and was just like, pretty much was just kind of like, I still have some fight left in me. Like, I know I can do this kind of a deal. I want to show my kids like that I can, still go or whatever. And I felt like that got lost in translation when he came over to AEW. Like, it was just very much so, here's the American Dragon. He's a super technical wrestler. And then you had the Blackpool Combat Club where it was just, they were a bunch of bruisers and bashers. And then after that kind of disintegrated, I felt like as soon as it disintegrated, I was like, I wonder if he's going to go back to the whole, like, I'm doing this for my family kind of a deal. And then it really wasn't mentioned until MJF brought it up in a lead up where he was just like, I'm going to make you quit for your kids, or your kids are going to make you quit. I don't remember whatever the thing it was, but And then you go back to like the promo or like the promo he cut after it. And I was the same way, Justin. I was just like, damn, like it just brought the whole thing full circle. Cause I thought the same thing when I watched the match. I was like, that was a weird ending. Like
it was. It's like, why didn't he pass out? When I was watching it or when I saw the highlights, it's like, it doesn't make sense why the American Dragon doesn't tap out. Like
yes, I was like, I literally
pass
watching,
out. It's that simple.
I was like, that was a very weird ending to the match. And then he cut that promo, and I was like, oh shit. And so like, I hate the fact that Tony Khan is taking credit, a lot of the credit for that whole thing, because I feel like based on what we know about AEW and how they all go through and stuff like that, I think that was Brian and MJF. That was them
100%.
That was them getting together and saying, this is what we're going to do. Brian's like, this is how we're going to end it, kind of a deal. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it wrapped everything up in a beautiful, nice, neat little bow. And the only complaint I had about it was I wish they would have done a couple other matches, maybe 2 more different matches before this one. I feel like they could have gotten away with maybe at least 1 more match, just a straight up match for the title, whether it was a timed out match like Danielson has done before with Kenny Omega, and I think Adam Page had a timed out match or something like that, where like they hit the buzzer and it was a no contest or whatever the ruling was, something along those lines. And then this happened. I think that's the only thing that could have made it better. But at the end of the day, like I loved it. I'm a huge, Bryan Danielson fan. I've always even before he really had his big push in WWE, I just liked him from his look, through the way he moved in the ring and everything like that. And I mean, obviously he probably is just taking a break for a little bit, which I know these guys need from time to time, the abuse on their bodies.
He deserves one for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm really curious when he comes back, how this plays into it. Like I wonder if like I mean, this is probably pipe dream on my end. I'm hoping that they do some sort of a long-term setup for him being the one to either unseat MJF or for him and MJF to have like a rivalry once MJF drops the title or something like that. But it was awesome.
I think they planted that seed. I want to kind of push back on what you said, only because this was a weird one for me, right? Because more often than not in wrestling, in my experience, in my opinion, the buildup for a good match is like the best part, right? Like you go back to like, what is it? 17 or WrestleMania 17 with The Rock and Austin, and like that buildup and the promo package that played before that match was, people still talk about it to this day, right? And then you to have the match, sometimes it's a great match, sometimes it's a little bit lackluster, but the buildup feels like it's like, it's the building up to the climax. And then afterwards, it kind of cools off.
Yeah.
For me, this match was kind of reverse. It wasn't a bad buildup, but in my opinion, and Rob, I don't know if you feel this way or not, just because you watch it a little bit more. I feel like out of the last 3 or 4 MJF feuds, I feel like this buildup was probably the least. Like if I had to put them in order, the one with him and Moxley was phenomenal. Obviously, the one with him and CM Punk was just, one of the best of all time.
Yes.
Right. If I had to put this one in order, it would probably be, it wasn't bad, it was good, but it would probably be
third,
the one that felt the most rush, which kind of goes into play of what you're talking about, Tom, about you wish that you could have put it out more. And which is what they did with the other ones. But for me, and then the match itself was literally what Meltzer gave it 5.75 stars. If you give a shit about that kind of stuff, you can kind of like look at where his matches are, and then you can play that like, okay, if it's 5.75 for him, then that means that I really liked it, whatever, right? But it was the post for me that makes me want, and we're going to have to wait, because I think you're right. I think Brian's going to go away for a while, and he's going to come back, and it's going to be a huge pop. And, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. And I think eventually he'll have that title. He definitely deserves it. But for me, this just left me like heartbroken. It was, it's like a lot of times you watch a movie and you get that feel good ending or whatever. And then sometimes, the heel wins, but, they still play their music at the end and like everything's happy or whatever. This just heartbroken. Like I was heartbroken. And even more so when I saw the promo, and man, I'm going to try my best not to get emotional, because for me and what I've dealt with my kids, and no, I wasn't a professional wrestler, but knowing that I couldn't do what I loved anymore because of my broken neck and my broken back, and realizing that like I had to stop doing the thing that I love the most, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be able to play with my kids. This just it hit me on a whole nother level, man.
Same.
And
Same.
when he said that, when he was doing that promo, yeah, maybe it was scripted and maybe he wasn't actually scared for his life, but like you knew that there's a certain little bit of truth that he probably feels every time he goes out in that fucking ring.
Right.
He's gambling his life for this thing that he loves, and like the decision of like, do I give that up or do I don't? Like it's too real. It's too real for me, and it just broke my fucking heart. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
And that is why we love wrestling.
Yeah.
Because it makes us feel.
Oh yeah.
And there are moments where it's relatable, and there are moments where it's so superfluous that it just gives us a minute to just kind of drift out of reality for a second. But then, like you said in The Godfather, they pull me back in.
Always.
And I think it's awesome that we get the opportunity to do things like this, like have this podcast, because for a while there we got pulled away from wrestling, but for some reason it just pulled us back in. And that's why we love it. And I think that's why WrestleMania is going to be so damn good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why AEW's Double or Nothing is going to be so good this year, is because they are doing it right. They are giving us these opportunities to see a good story develop, and they've given us these little punches in the feels, and they just punch us in the gut when it comes to certain things too. But
or maybe I just need to take another estrogen blocker.
Maybe that too. Well, guys, we got about a minute left on this thing. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a blast having you. We'll definitely have you on again. Yeah. Justin, final word? Anything else?
Final word. Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Tom, last chance.
Copernicus.
All right. Well, boys, that's episode 9, season 2, Better Broadway. Hope you guys had a great show, great time watching us today. We'll be back next week sometime to aggravate you again. We'll talk more about WrestleMania. We'll talk more about AEW. We'll talk about Japan's upcoming show and Impact Wrestling's upcoming show. In the meantime, I'm the coach. For Chef, Justin, and Tom, happy wrestling, everybody. See you next time.
Ta-ta for now.